4 Minutes has officially aired. Episode 1 came out last week, and I am just itching to talk about it. So I watched the sultry version, which I believe is just the uncut version, and I compared it time-wise to the other version, and they have 15 minutes different, which is kind of a lot. So I'm really curious what they cut out of the clean version and how it might affect people understanding the story. So if you haven't watched it, I'm going to be talking about what happened in the first episode. So this is your sign maybe to pause this, add it to your watch later, and come back after you've seen it. I don't want to spoil it for you, but if you would like to hear what happened in the first episode, you are more than welcome to stay. I feel like the pre-credit scene that this episode opens with is vital. I feel like it's really going to be an important event that everything kind of ties into. So it opens with these flashing back and forth scenes between a emergency room, which is room number 4, and a man staggering around, obviously injured. And it looks kind of like in maybe a abandoned warehouse yard sort of idea. So they don't show you who is actually in the hospital bed. The other character is Tyme, played by Jess. And honestly, I am almost certain that the character on the bed is Bible's character, Great. The patient on the bed actually codes, and it flashes to Jess's character Tyme getting shot. And then it shows us the time of 11 o'clock. And then it just goes into our opening credits, which, by the way, is absolutely beautiful. Like, check out this opening sequence. So that's how this whole show gets started, which is pretty intense. So I'm not going to talk about the episode chronologically. I'm going to talk about each character and kind of what happens around them. Because yes, they are all connected, but I feel like each one really had an individual story to tell in this kind of world building of an episode. So here's a rundown of what happens with Bible's character, Great. He is 21 years old. He is a university student. He comes from an extremely rich and privileged upbringing. He has a brother named Korn, who we do meet, and he obviously does not get along well with his family. So that's kind of what we know about his character. So in this episode, we get introduced to his character as he's waking up after a presumably party night, and he is late for school. So he gets ready, he gets going, he goes out to the elevator where he has what appears like a major panic attack. Okay, so Great is on his way to school. He is super late. He pulls over to respond to a phone call from his friend, making him even later. He gets back in and he starts zooming off, right? So he is flying through this tunnel and he ends up hitting somebody and just like they go flying. He gets out, checks on them. It looks like they are not okay. And then he gets back in his car and drives away. But as he's driving, we have like this out of body moment where it pulls him back in time, back to the moment when he had originally pulled over to the side of the road 4 minutes earlier. Now, I think he was just seeing, like, it was like a vision. So he's obviously a little bit like, what was that? But he gets back in his car and he starts going slower because I think he's a little bit rattled. But that same woman, the same person he hit in his vision, still steps out intentionally in front of his vehicle and he hits her, but not as hard. So she survives. This time, phones an ambulance and she gets sent to the hospital. The next time we meet Great, he is having a family dinner with who are presumably his parents and his brother. You can tell that they don't have a very good family dynamic because he picks up his plate and he goes and sits at like the complete opposite side of the table. Then his brother drives him home and they have a really good conversation. They obviously get along really well. I really liked that dynamic between him and his brother. Here's the other thing that I found very strange in this scene is right when he gets out of the car, he's like, oh my gosh, it's already 11 o'clock. And then when he's sitting on the curb, his phone says 7:13. And I don't understand if what that means, if it means anything, or it's just like a weird anomaly. But him and his brother, Korn, are sitting there and Great decides to open up and tell him, like, look, I'm having these visions. They're totally freaking me out. His brother's like, dude, maybe you need therapy. You find out that they actually, it seems like there's maybe half brothers, but again, it could be translation. I don't really know. The next day, Great gets up at 11 o'clock. Again, he leaves his house, which you see is on the 4th floor. He takes the stairs and he goes to the hospital because he's bringing the woman flowers. When he gets there, he gets out onto the 4th floor of the hospital, goes up to the reception desk, finds out the woman is indeed in, you guessed it, room number 4. This cannot be a coincidence. Like, they have to be giving all of these 4s for a reason. Like, 4s and 11s, I don't really know. He goes in and he talks to the woman. She tells him that, like, oh, I intentionally did this. You have this life in front of you, blah, blah, blah. He leaves and runs smack dab into Dr. Tyme. So he takes off, doesn't even apologize for running into him. And then again, we have another one of those out of body moments where he's back 4 minutes to the nurse's station again. But this time he leaves the flowers, turns, he sees Dr. Tyme, and he has this moment of like a vision of the future or the past. I don't know of them. It's of them together. That kind of sums up what happens with Bible's character. Now let's talk about Jess. Jess is Dr. Tyme. So the first time we really meet Dr. Tyme is at the hospital when the woman who Great's character hit comes and needs surgery, and he does the surgery. Kind of get a little bit of insight into his background in his life, because he says he's obviously very, very smart and talented, but wants to work at a private hospital, and that's because he wants to make money so that he can take care of his grandmother who he lives with, who has diabetes. So that's his goal. Like, he wants to get rich and he wants to take care of his grandmother. There's a moment in one of the scenes earlier in the episode where Dr. Den, who is Dr. Tyme's friend, is telling him something that I'll get to in a minute. And then Tyme's phone rings and he says, hey, it's your girlfriend. He answers it, but they don't tell us who it was. Hate that. So I don't know, does he have a girlfriend, or like, I don't know. There's so many like questions. And other than Great and Tyme bumping into each other, we actually don't have a lot about Tyme in this episode. Our like obviously interactions, but we don't really learn a lot about his story. We have 3 other pretty main characters, like support characters, but I think are very vital. One of them being Great's brother, Korn. We know that Korn works for their family business. He's in charge of like transportation or something like that. He goes to see his father and learns that he is going to be taking over a new department, but it is a department that he had never heard of, which to me is extremely suspicious. Like, extremely. So we find out, like, the dad's like, oh my gosh, it's like the most important part of our entire business. They basically call it a secret operations. And you find out that it's like gambling. It's like casinos and online gambling. So it doesn't seem above board, especially since he had no idea about it. Korn actually goes to the warehouses where the secret operations take place. He has to take a boat. He goes in. It is like super sketchy looking place, and there's all these people on computers, but it zeroes in on one woman 2 times. So that has to be significant, and I don't know why or what or how she's connected to, but no good. No good. He goes to his, I'm guessing it's his lover, Tonkla, and they're actually really, really cute. I really liked them together. I feel like they actually like each other, but Tonkla seems to have that's her other character of the 3, some secrets, and I don't trust him, because when Korn gets there, Tonkla's doing some work and he like hides it, and he just seems extremely suspicious to me. Everyone seems suspicious to me. Like, everyone is suspicious to me. I do have to say, like, we get into about 6 minutes of NC scene where I do need to give props for representation, and the fact that they did not make Korn a selfish man. So let's just move on. After that, he gets a phone call. He has to go home for dinner. He says he's with someone named like Fasai, which obviously is not who he was with. So I found that very interesting. We just have like a whole bunch of lies. Everybody's lying everywhere. All the lies. The last we see of Tonkla is in that scene, and the last we see of Korn in this episode is when he is driving Great home and they have that interaction. So our other character, I think he's going to be more important and more significant in this whole show and plotline than we expected. So it's Dr. Den. Now, Dr. Den is the other resident with Dr. Tyme. They're both surgeons, but one thing he is researching NDEs, like near-death experiences, when people's hearts have stopped, beating, when they've coded, that kind of thing. And he's collecting as many interviews and researching as much as he can. So that's what he's doing. So through this episode, we actually have had a few little bits, voiceovers of him interviewing these patients and learning more about their experiences until the very end of this episode. A woman walks in, she sits down. You can automatically tell this interview is more important than the rest. And he's talking to her, and she's talking about how her heart stopped beating and just how she was feeling, what she experienced. And then she goes, I can see 4 minutes in the future. Hugely significant, which makes me really think maybe Bible's character, Great, is either has had a near-death experience, his heart has stopped, this is what's caused this. Maybe he is in a coma. Maybe none of this is real. Maybe these are all visions of the past or all visions of the future. Maybe none of this has even happened. Maybe they're both dead. I don't know. I am left with so many questions. I cannot wait till episode 2. I would love to hear your theories, not like I read this somewhere and this is fact, because I don't know if this is a book or not. I don't think it is, but if it is, don't come in here with me. In the book it said this. That will ruin everything. Let me know your theories, because I am such a theory hound. I love it. Anyways, this show was amazing. Quality was top notch. Everything was top notch. I'm excited. We have 7 more episodes to go, which is not enough.